Welcome back to the arena. This is Hudson Brock. I don't know why I said my name. You know who I am. But today I'm here with Josh Cash. Welcome, Joshy.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
The arena is now the name of our office. We were just talking before about committing to calling it that.
Yeah.
I messed up and called it the office, which was lame. But this is like the digital arena that we're entering now.
My first time here, I think we got to commit to the arena. Anytime anyone calls it the office, I'm just going to pretend that I don't know what they're talking
Just
about.
totally ignore them.
Yeah.
So this is your second podcast that you've been on, and probably the second coolest, if we're honest. Tell us about the first one you were on.
I was on Tom Rowland's podcast. A lot of fun. Tom asked me to come in and speak on just life as, I guess, an immigrant and green card holder and how all that panned out. So it was fun being on his. Probably have more to talk about on this one, given it's more professional, but pretty excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. I've wanted Josh to be on since we started and had to recruit him a little bit this morning. I'm really good at planning out guests, and I appreciate you coming on last minute. Tom, just shout out local Chattanooga legend, started a really cool workout group in the morning that you're part of, right?
Yeah, RL. You've came a couple of times. Hudson's a part-timer, trying to convince a few more people, but Tom wants to get more young blood in there, so we need to get more guys out there. And now that hopefully Builder is going to come back, we'll get him in. Yeah.
PSA.
Yeah. Public service announcement.
What time do you guys work out? It's really early, right?
5:30. Most mornings we meet, probably get going at like 5:45.
5:45.
Yeah.
North Chat. Pretty
Right
cool
off
outdoor.
Minnetonka.
Yeah, CrossFit type setup.
Yeah. We had a guy come today, just joined with CBL, moved from somewhere in Virginia. So hopefully he'll keep coming. Maybe if he hears this, he'll be inspired.
Nice. So one of the things that I've always enjoyed talking to you about, I guess for context, we met through my brother, Builder, when I moved back from LA in 2020.
Yeah.
Spring of 2020. No agenda, just wanting to connect with good people as we were coming back. And Builder was just like, you got to meet Josh. You guys will totally jive. He's got a cool accent. He loves soccer or football. And you guys will have a blast. So we had no initial intention of working together, but then we got to talk about job stuff for like a year. Is that right?
Yeah.
You just finished your MBA or were finishing your MBA?
I think we started talking as I was finishing up my MBA. Probably that spring I was still doing it. And then as we rolled into the summer, I graduated that Christmas. And we were going through some transition, my wife and I were, and looking at the job stuff and talking with you and what was coming next. And then the excitement of a new baby coming, that was a big deal. And what we had in the pipeline didn't make as much sense. So we got to talking about recruiting and tech recruiting specifically, and that was exciting for me.
Yeah, it's this funny thing where I've had this a couple of times where I'm talking to someone as a candidate, like I'm the recruiter, they're the candidate, thinking like, all right, what are different job ideas for them? What are they good at? Getting to know them better. And then I'll have like this aha moment where it's like, oh, they could be a great recruiter. Why don't we flip and talk about actually working together rather than just working on a placement somewhere else?
Yeah.
So I remember that moment with you, and AlloHire was like just incorporated, didn't even have a public brand yet. And so at that point, as a startup founder, you're like, I just have to have people that will take a bet on me, and then I'm going to take a bet on, we'll see if we can create something sustainable together. And the more I got to know you, I was like, Josh has like a relentless optimism and just an engine to get things done, which I'd love to like keep unpacking how you have that. I'm curious if part of it's the routine of working out in the morning and, or maybe, I don't know, just the way you were raised, but anyways, that happened for us like I think March or April of 2021, and then you came on kind of as a contractor initially, contract to hire for about 3 months last summer.
Right until August, yeah.
Okay.
Doing that in OGA.
And then Operation Get Active. Shout out to everyone on that team. They're awesome. We just got to play in their Corporate Cup, which is the annual soccer tournament for local businesses in Chattanooga.
I missed it. I was sad I missed it.
Josh is probably one of our best players, second to Hunter and John J. and me. And it was really sad because you were out of town, John J. was out of town, and we got some great subs. But back-to-back winners. That was pretty fun.
I'm still going to claim that I was a huge part of that.
Huge part.
Yeah, I was there in spirit. Unfortunately, wasn't there in person, but
Actually, we have to give Z a big shout out. He was our relentless optimist, Zach O'Neill, and he scored 2 goals on our mayor, Tim Kelly. So
shout out Tim Kelly.
Huge shout out to Tim and to Zach O'Neill. So, anyways, go back. Did you hear that? I got a bubble in my throat.
Yeah.
To go back, you were kind of working in between with Operation Get Active and with Allo, which wasn't even AlloHire at the time. It was Brock Recruiting.
Yeah.
And then came on full time in August. Would love to hear past, what is that, 12 months, 13 months?
Yeah, just
now,
over, yeah.
How you've kind of navigated entering this new space of tech recruiting, and yeah, just anything you'd like to highlight that you learned along that journey. I don't know. A lot of the people on here are going to be more technical that are listening, but there may be some other recruiters or aspiring recruiters that would have a lot to learn. For
sure. Yeah, going through that period in the summer was incredible. I think recruiting from the start off, how you and then crew as well, allowed me to figure out where I was at, working through sort of career changes coming out of the MBA program. So it was fun doing the work with OGA, fun doing the recruiting. And as I was going through that process, I realized, one, how much I enjoyed it. I think the note as well, my family who is in Ireland, being able to work remotely, or remote friendly, now hybrid, I guess, was a big influence on just where we were headed as a family and what that allowed us flexible wise. When it got into recruiting, I'd recruited a lot in the past, not technical specific, but I love people.
Soccer mainly, and
for
Brian.
Yeah, up there I recruited actually for Brian's online programs and some of their soccer as well. And before that, I worked at a Christian Sports and Adventures camp in Arkansas, Camp Ozark. And I traveled around the Southeast, school to school, kind of campus to campus recruiting for summer camp style jobs. So
pretty different.
Yeah, very different from technical recruiting. I guess same principle in getting to know people. And that was the biggest pull into coming into this space was when I met you. And then we went to lunch that day and we met Jackson and Hunter. And just you sharing your vision for what you're trying to do really made sense for me and my family at that time. I'm more so just looking to work with good people. So that was really exciting. As we went through the year, I think picked up pretty quickly on the contract piece. Got into full-time, was really excited about that. Noticed very quickly that I can talk to whoever wants to talk to me. As far as being strategic and technically sound, that definitely needed work. So I've seen a lot of growth over the past year in having technical conversations that aren't in-depth technically. I understand what a lot of tools are used for. I can, word for word, if we're going through a conversation, can rate out of 10 where someone's at. I'm more so just getting to know what they care about within technology has been, I think, a differentiator in that space versus just trying to learn if they can do the job or not. That's been really fun for me. And one thing that I've learned for a lot of software engineers or machine learning engineers who are getting multiple messages daily, if you want to actually spark something and learn more about their experience, it's, I think, a good way to go to actually learn about them first. So that's the one big takeaway from me is being technically sound is important, but more so knowing what that person or the candidate would like to do with their technical expertise is probably more so important.
I like that a lot. Yeah. And I think that's part of why I thought you'd be good at it originally. Like, you just have a genuine curiosity about people. And we just took the Myers-Briggs assessment as a teen this week. And I think you were either the first or second highest extrovert on the team. Yeah. We were the top 2.
Yeah. I think I pipped you on extroversion.
Did you?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think just slightly. And then outside of that, everything else was kind of pretty similar, I think. Okay. One letter difference. You're an N, I'm an S, right?
Yeah, ENFP was mine.
And I'm ESFP.
ESFP, okay. Yeah. So both extroverted, yeah. And yeah, I think the genuine curiosity is huge for recruiting, and it really comes through. Like that's one of those really nuanced things where recruiting is a pretty simple function, but it's also very nuanced, right? Because it's people on both sides. People are emotional, versus selling a product like software, hardware. We're selling a person and a relationship. So I think that genuine curiosity to take the time to get to know someone is huge, and you do that naturally. But I'm curious too how you've coupled that with where you're just talking about learning more of these different software languages and frameworks and how things piece together. So maybe like, I don't know, one of the roles you're working right now, like what are some of the technologies that you've gotten exposure to, and how have you thought about going out and finding people for those types of roles?
Yeah. Working a lot of different roles at the minute. I think it would be fair to shout out a lot of the clients that we work with are really helpful in rec calls and understanding what the role looks like. Hearing directly from the hiring manager really helps you understand what's more important outside of what the job description says. So going into a couple of searches recently, I've had the chance to work across the board, whether it's data analytics, machine learning, software engineering. A lot of the same technologies seem to show up for these roles. And one thing that's been a challenge for me is understanding how they're used in each role. So, for example, AWS is pretty prevalent for all of those roles, whether it's software engineering, whether it's the machine learning piece or the data analytics, as well as the likes of Python and SQL. So understanding how those have been used for me has been a challenge, and how I need to understand those when outreaching or sourcing, just because so many people have used those, but it may not be necessarily how they're supposed to be used for this role. So one role recently, I think, blending the two together was a software engineer role with a machine learning focus. It's been a fun search. I've really enjoyed working with the client. We have 2 people who are heading to a final for that role, which is exciting. For that role specifically, they were looking for someone who can not only like build machine learning models, but also put them into production or at use, I guess, a better, easier word to understand, at least for me when it was explained, into AWS. So that's just one role that I've been working that's going successful. The other one I've been having a hard time with was a data ecosystem role. It's a software engineering role as well. However, understanding what data ecosystem means has been a difficult piece for me in trying to string all of that together. So looking at that role, they're looking for someone with Python experience, JavaScript on the front end, Java on the back end, and then as well blending it with someone who has good sort of data engineering understanding, worked with the likes of ETL tools, built pipelines, things like that. So
there's so many levels to data, right? As data is just exploding.
Yes.
Like I forget the stat, but it's exponential growth. Like data is doubling, information's doubling with the internet, and I think that's really a fascinating space to be in. And I don't know how everything fits together, but data engineering versus data science, like data lakes, data streams, all the different terminology in it, I think is it's just a good reason for the conversation with the hiring manager. Like you can't just get a job description as a recruiter unless you've been either a data engineer before or you've just been hyper focused on it for years. Most of the time, recruiters are going to be more generalists. And so that conversation with the hiring manager that you talked about, absolutely critical to get the download, to at least know what some good questions are, to be kind of an extension of the hiring manager, right? To save them some time.
I think as well that can sound scary for a candidate hearing that. That just the idea that you need to have all of these different skill sets. What I will say as well, most of the clients that we've worked with are more so interested in the person. Yes, there's jobs that hard skills are very important, but a lot of the times people would go into a job description or see something posted and not necessarily want to go through with it because they're maybe only a 70% fit for the role, when in fact that's probably a great ratio to go in, challenge yourself. And I think hiring managers most of the time are aware that if we find this exact person that's like 1 in a million, the goal is to get great people who want to learn, but also folks who do have 60 to 70% of the skill set and can do the job well. So as though that's a scary thought, it is so helpful having those conversations with the hiring manager. And I think a really important shout out for recruiters is our jobs are important, because a lot of times it can be lost in translation from directly applying to a role versus speaking to a recruiter and hearing the actual ins and outs of, okay, this can sound concerning, but here's what's most important. And this is actually okay. You know, if you've been exposed to this specific tool or technology, that's going to be more than equipped for this role. You don't have to know everything 100%.
So I want to ask a question on that. You said you think 70% proficiency in the job description or 70% fit with the job description is the right ratio for the majority of the candidates that you're talking to?
I think so. I think 70% is a good, I would say, percentage to shoot for when lining up with a job description. I also think as a human, me personally, if I'm getting to apply for a job, I want to be able to do it well. I think 70% is a good percentage that's going to set you up for success. But I also want to be challenged. So I would not want to go into a new job where I was basically making a lateral move, just sidewards, doing the same thing, 100% able to do it. I don't really see any room for growth there. I also think that it's fun for a hiring team to have someone who is able to come in and share their expertise. And folks are always going to have different skill sets that you don't have. And that's the whole idea of building a team, whether it's in sports or software engineering.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think, we have to find that balance between like helping hiring managers and companies understand most candidates aren't going to want to make a pure lateral move, which would mean they were 100% fit of the job description, unless they're going to get a big bump in pay or your product is that much cooler. And most of the time people are biased to think their product is that much cooler. It's not always the case. And then pay-wise, what I've seen is most of the time people are going to want at least a 15% bump to make a lateral move and feel like it was a real win. And so I really like that balance you're talking about of find the stretch for the employees that are really ambitious and wanting to grow. For some people, a lateral move might make sense, and it might be a shift from a small company to a big company or something like that. But if you're a candidate, don't be afraid if you don't meet all the qualifications. And specifically with engineers, I think a lot of times because there is more of a sense of, binary, right or wrong, on or off, it can be like, I do fit or I don't fit. And you, I know, have pushed candidates before, like, you might not be, in your mind, 100% proficient, but if you're curious to learn this and you're coachable, I think you can do it. And you've, I think, had a couple where that really did a 180 from the candidate dropping out or not even interviewing to even getting the job, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's also been a point where candidates have been put in for a role and they were curious about it and willing to go that extra mile to learn a little bit more. Didn't work out for that specific role and hired for a different role within the company. So I think it's fair to say it's important to remember that people hire people. And again, the skills are important. And that 70%, I would encourage it to be the core skill set needed. I mean, if it's requiring
minimum qualifications.
Yeah, if it's an OOP language, if it's a cloud, whether it's Azure, AWS, or GCP, making sure that those minimum qualifications are within that 70% is important. And then if you hit the preferred and not all those are there, or some of the ones that aren't required for day-to-day job, then that's a good thing, right? That's 70%. Here's some things that we can brush up on, and here's some things you'll get to learn along the way. Where if it's a 70% fit on some of the preferred, but the minimum isn't there, it's just not going to set them up for success. So I think it's important to highlight as a recruiter, that's more so our job, to encourage and build the trust to say, hey, I would not put your name forward if it doesn't make sense for you to have a conversation. That's a different level of what that 70% can look like. So, in my, it's only been a year and a half. I'm still learning a lot. But just based on that and learning as much as I can learn from the likes of yourself and other folks on the team like Hunter, and then the people we collaborate with as well. I mean, some of our clients are incredible, and just getting to learn from them on how they carry out their best practices and the types of people that they want. I think when you look at recruiting, there's just so much more than the job description and the skill set. And you got to build those relationships and spark those conversations to understand, I guess, the unwritten job description.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if that's a a real thing or if that's been said before, but that's how I
The
picture it.
unwritten job description.
Yeah.
Reading between the lines. Yeah, I think. I think you are just a champion of your candidates too, and you can't ever underestimate like encouragement is a superpower if it's grounded in truth, right? It's not just hype.
Yeah.
And then really championing people to believe in themselves. It feels so different if you have an agent that's going to advocate for you to the hiring manager versus you just reaching out directly or trying to pitch yourself. It takes a lot of the pressure off, I think. And there's some social proof, like someone else sees the value in me. So I think you're really good at that. And I've seen you fight for your candidates. How do you balance? I'm thinking about some of the roles you're working right now. So you've got a company like Chick-fil-A corporate that's bigger company, more enterprise level, big brand. And you've got like a local company, Stratus Grid, Chattanooga, really smart, organically growing young company. How do you balance recruiting for those two? Because I can imagine it's totally different environments.
Yeah, I think with Chick-fil-A, it's very much so a huge relationship with them. I mean, that you're so well equipped going into searches for Chick-fil-A that it's kind of hard to, I would say, go wrong with it. Once you get everything that you need, the information that you need, Chick-fil-A as itself sometimes can be a brand that just sells itself. So it doesn't feel like you have to weigh up as much on the marketing or the outreach. You know, Chick-fil-A's name carries a lot of weight. And attracting candidates to Chick-fil-A sometimes can be easier than smaller startups where you're trying to explain who they are, what they're doing, why they're cool, and how it's going to be a good fit for that candidate. So I'd say that's an important differentiator, balancing a startup client versus a well-established. A lot of people know, especially here in the Southeast. I mean, Chick-fil-A is just massive. So that takes a lot of weight, I would say, off my shoulders in terms of trying to be super creative with outreach with Chick-fil-A, just because I know people will be interested in actually learning about them. Whereas a company like Stratus Grid, which is really cool, based out of here in Chattanooga, you have to be more understanding of what they're looking for, and I would say be more thorough in understanding the person behind the profile.
That's another good one, the person behind the profile.
Yeah, I think knowing, the likes of Stratus Grid offers some great flexibility from a remote standpoint. And remote work, as you know, in the last year and a half has exploded. A lot of people like hybrid or remote, whatever it may be. But looking for folks who are really looking for a remote workspace, whether that be in one location or be able to travel, that can be a massive differentiator for that company when sourcing for candidates. If there's another client that we have that isn't offering, say, for example, Stratus Grid does offer 2 to 3 months a year out of wherever you want in the world. As long as you can,
benefit.
Yeah, you can work EST hours. It doesn't matter where you are. You just have to be in the US for 9 months of the year. That's a massive differentiator that I'm probably going to hone in on and encourage, as a tool to spark conversation. Like, this could be a cool opportunity for you, especially if you're a younger professional, or if you and your family are like nomads and want to just travel the world. Here's a company that's going to support that.
I've seen that Instagram bio explode. Digital nomad.
Yeah.
Like travel bloggers, as families are just traveling and documenting. I think that matters to like younger generations. I think more travel is common, and that's a pretty cool benefit. Even for someone like you, I know we never even talked about this. Where are you from originally?
Oh, yeah. Northern Ireland, small town outside of Belfast, and it's called Carrickfergus.
Carrickfergus, about an hour outside of Belfast, is that right?
About an hour outside of Belfast, also known as the center of the universe.
The center of the universe, some of the best soccer teams in the
world. Not quite, but yeah,
I'm
biased.
There. You were there for a month, and I feel like that's kind of a case study too for like if you are either from another place, not from the United States, or have family, or even if you don't, just being able to get new perspective is really valuable as humans. I think companies are becoming more innovative with that hybrid. One of the things that I think is interesting in our story for AlloHire is we just opened our office in downtown Chattanooga.
That's right.
And we're trying to figure that out. Like, how many days are we going to commit to being together versus remote? And then for the people that don't live in Chattanooga, how do we make them really feel included when we're all there and they aren't? So have you seen anything like that? Or I guess when I'm hearing you talk about big companies versus small companies, what's coming to my mind is you have to have an office that people want to come to and a real sense of culture if you're going to require people to come on site, right? Mm-hmm. And similarly, if you're not going to offer an office, then you have to really offer a great remote employee engagement, different communication channels, and probably some people that are really thinking about how to consistently engage remote workers, right?
Yep. I'm not sure if this is what you meant, but I believe you're referring to the arena.
Arena.
Yeah.
Not our new office.
Yeah,
the arena.
I don't know what office you're talking about. But yeah, I think personally, I would consider myself as someone who's really outgoing. And even being in Ireland, it was so fun spending time with family, but I definitely noticed a drop off in just the culture aspect of being involved with AlloHire on a regular basis. We're all pretty close. Even logistically, we're all, geographically close together. So I miss that in-person time. And I'm not going to sit here and say that you can't build remote teams with a great culture. I'm sure it's doable. I think a lot of it has to boil down to the person. And I think the move's just given the option. For me, I'm so excited about the new space, the arena, what it's going to bring, the people that we're going to build relationships with. But I'm also a very extroverted, outgoing person and get a lot of energy from those moments. Whenever I'm remotely working, it's great. That's the flexibility piece, right? But whenever you think of if it's a harder day or slower responses are coming in, it's so much harder for me personally to get that energy lift. Whereas if I was to have someone beside me and, spark a 5-minute conversation or tell a joke or, I don't know, just do something dumb.
Dap them up.
Yeah. Oh, give them one of those.
It matters. I think it matters. I think there's magic in being together and we're just going to keep experimenting. I think Tuesday, time we were all together, was a good case study just for getting our team, at least the full-time team, together in person, eating food together. I somehow squeezed a ketchup bottle so hard. This is at the beginning of our lunch. We're all excited. We're like kind of launching the arena.
Classic.
And somehow I squeezed it so hard. It's at Urban Stack, which if you've been there, maybe this is an ongoing thing with the ketchup bottles because they have this awesome Chipotle ketchup. I think it has, for whatever reason, it gets clogged. So I squeeze it super hard, blow the entire top off, and ketchup goes everywhere. Like the entire bottle's on my plate, and then I see it like everywhere. On my shirt and my pants, and I'm like, what the heck just happened? And then I just hear someone saying, I have ketchup in my hair. I have ketchup in my hair, and I slowly look up, and Josh just has a glob of ketchup. It looked like you got just rocked in the head, just a massive glob of ketchup. But all that to say, that was the laughter that came from that. I was crying laughing. Those moments don't happen remotely, and there's the laughter, I don't know, all of that really adds up. And so yeah, and we're not the only ones saying it. I just was looking up that Apple is going back to 3 days on site. Mm-hmm. And they've obviously invested a ton in their office. It's incredible. But employees are circulating petitions saying we're not going to do that. Mm-hmm. And I think Apple's really trying to hold the line. Tesla's done some of that. Google's done some of that. These companies that I think actually have amazing spaces and culture, mm-hmm. I think they're going to be able to pull it off, and it's going to take people coming back together to remember how good it is for coming up with new ideas and feeling connected to your coworkers. But there also may be a bunch of people that leave kind of in the interim. So it'll be an interesting trend to keep watching and to figure out internally.
Yeah. I think with the Apple piece as well, that 3 days in person, I think back to whenever Crew was on and what he was talking about was just being curious with people in person, forgetting the behind the screen, finding out what they're like on LinkedIn, but actually figuring out what their skill set is, what makes them tick, what makes them amazing. Everyone has gifts. And I think that's so much, not easier, but so much more enjoyable when those things are found out in person. And I think these big companies are going to get the right people that they need at the right time. And those who don't want to be a part of that, I think are going to miss out. I do believe that there's a lot of reason for remote work, and it works best for some and not for others. But the idea of just being open-minded and getting in there, spending that in-person time, I just think that's invaluable. I don't know if you can replace it.
Yeah, I'm pumped. We're going down to the Keys next month, and I just already know it's going to be so much fun. There's going to be some of those moments. I'm super clumsy, so I feel like those moments just follow me around.
Yeah.
But it's great to have other people to laugh with.
It's going to be the in the moment travel times, like going from place to place, that I think is where we're going to get a lot of laughs.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good time.
The logistics that we're great at.
Yeah.
Any other parting words? It was super fun being able to chat about this, and I see you live it out every day, so I know it's you're backing it up too. But any other?
No,
thoughts?
I'm just I guess for recruiters, I see a lot on LinkedIn. Some good, some bad in terms of just the feedback that we would get as an industry. And it's a hard job. I think for those who are involved in the space or communicating with people who are working as a recruiter, just know a lot of the times that most people have your best interests in mind. And there's just so much that goes into the practices that I'm still trying to learn and want to grow into. And I'm just excited to see, I guess, what we can do more so specifically as a company in caring for both candidates and clients and really just champion the talent experience as much as possible. So I'm just excited to be in this space and excited to just learn and grow with the AlloHire team, and can't wait to see what comes in, I don't know, 3 years, 5 years, who knows? I don't know what's going to happen.
To the moon.
I think it's going to be pretty sweet.
That's going to be awesome. Well, thank you so much for being in the arena.
Yeah.
It's great to have you.
The digital arena.
We'll get you back at some point.
Okay. Yeah.
Get out of here. Oh, man.